Ultimately, we are accountable to one law, and that is the law of love. Because love is who we are. And although, as love, we might take different forms, different expressions, the fact remains that love is our essence. Love remains our essence. And so, if this is what we are made of, then of course it's the law of love that we need to live by to feel good about ourselves. Because how can we go against the law of our true nature and feel good about ourselves? How could we go against the law of our true nature and be content, be happy, be peaceful, be the pure essence, joy with, joy, ultimate joy beyond pleasure and pain? How can we be that without aligning to that? It's very simple. It's like we're expecting to be happy whilst denying who we are, and that's never going to happen. So first and foremost, who are you? When you know you are love, you know that ultimately you are only accountable to the law of love. And that doesn't mean necessarily going against societal law. It means seeing societal law in that greater context of love. What works for love, what doesn't work for love. And I mean, what are you ultimately answerable to? Do you ultimately hold yourself accountable to a questionable societal system, or do you ultimately, and its values, which are values of destruction, of pollution, of separation, of loss, of meaninglessness, do you ultimately hold yourself accountable to those terms? Or do you ultimately hold yourself accountable to love, to the love that you are and that you know you are capable of, because you know this is who you are on a very deep level? This is not something you ever forget, and everything telling you otherwise, depression, anxiety, malaise, is just pushing you back to where you need to be. It's just like bringing you back to where you need to be. So these are signals, these negative sort of things that crop up, these are signals to ourselves that something's not right, and we need to change something. We need to change our attitudes. We need to realign ourselves to the love that we are. The love that we are never changes. That's unchangeable. It's the passing form and forms that change. And through expression within form, we can choose to realign to who we are. But yeah, I'm not saying go against societal rules and regulations. That's not what I'm saying. Because we don't want to make things difficult for ourselves. Love breezes. Love goes its own way and is effortless. It doesn't seek to tie itself up in things that are not love. It doesn't seek to, like there are some things that you can just let pass by. It's like anyone can invent any rule and say that you have to live by it. But that's not what self-mastery is all about. Self-mastery is not submitting to something less than yourself. Self-mastery is submitting, surrendering to nothing else but your ultimate self. So this is another sort of misinterpretation of surrender. We see surrender as meekness, as weakness, as giving up. All it is giving up is what doesn't work for you. All it is giving up is patterns of an ingrained, limited perspective. We're surrendering that loss of life to life. This is the surrender. It's a beautiful thing. And we all have a conscience. We all have an inner compass. And some people's inner compass may be stronger than others, you know. If we're sort of susceptible to trends within the world in which we live, we can kind of get lost in those trends and lose our own way, succumb to like broader societal peer pressure in a way, live how others live because that is the way people live, when even if it's not bringing the right results, even if people are not satisfied with that, there's like a momentum within society, collective consciousness, which an expression of collective consciousness, which the individual often subsumes itself into or loses itself into. But in learning who you are overcoming the collective sway and also the sway of other individuals. It's remembering to allow others to be as they are in love, but knowing that you don't need to be as anyone else dictates, because you are true essence love, just as everyone else is true essence love, and all we are is consciousness choosing its way, choosing what it wants to be and what it doesn't want to be. And I mean, when you know you are love, would you really want to choose anything less than love, would you? No, you wouldn't. When you know your ultimate essence, all you want to do in life is align to that ultimate essence. And when you don't know your ultimate essence, but you have an inclination of your ultimate essence, then life is here to explore and work towards that ultimate essence. So, yeah, life is here to return to life. It's like we're here to rest in peace before we die, you know, rest in peace on gravestones. Well, rest in peace, the beauty, the love of your life, rest in it. Return life to life. Yeah? So today, just as the sun seems to be coming in, I'd like to just bring the sun into focus. Which is what we're doing with life. We are ultimate essence. That I said before, I see this as represented by a pure burning ball of light, having an experience of itself. So we're ultimate essence, focusing itself on one aspect of life, on one aspect of itself, in order to have an experience, to know, to learn, to see the limitations of its learning in form, to come back, to let that form shed, or to identify with something greater than that form, the spirit within that form, to return to that spirit, that ultimate essence. And this is a wonderful word, information. We inform someone, we give someone information. All that is happening actually is love informing itself. Love stepping down from its purity into form in order to feed back to itself, to inform itself of what it is. And so we are life information. This is who we are. Life information. You know, it's like there's this unmanifest essence that we're feeding back to that is the same life we are. It's like I say, it's the spiritual organic spectrum. spiritual organic spectrum from essence, ultimate spirit, down through all the organic life expressions which feed back to love with what it is. This information. So the sun, I've written a few things that I would like to talk about in relation to the sun. So the sun, center point sun you are. So I've said that this essence love that I see as a burning ball of light, of golden, yellow, orange light, this essence is who we are. So center point, sun you are. You are what moves the planets and the stars. So you are this essence, and this essence moves the planets and the stars. And again, when I say you are what moves the planets and the stars, well, it's not you as a limited person. Like, we have this idea of all power being like a limited person that can command everything else. Well, it's not the limited person that can command anything else, it's the consciousness running through that person. It's the consciousness that we are. And so using that consciousness to explore and realign to that same consciousness is what we're here for. You are what moves the planets and the stars. So you as ultimate essence, not you as your ego self, for that is a figment of your own imagination, the imagination of the source. You as your real self. So this source is your real self. This ultimate consciousness is your real self. And all that's happening in the world is this ultimate consciousness is looking in on itself. It's looking in on itself in order to see itself. Like I said before, the duality of manifestation of time and space. One aspect can see another aspect, whereas in pure oneness, nothing's happening. It's everything and it's nothing. It's yet to be born. It's unmanifest. It has everything, but it lacks an experience of having everything. It lacks an experience of the all that it is. So, you are what moves the planets and the stars, not you as your ego self, for that is a figment of your own imagination. You as your real self, that which animates you, limited you, and all else. Animates ultimate you, animates limited you, animates. Consciousness animates. Consciousness is what moves. Consciousness is what moves. So we move, and we are moved. Again, it depends where you align your understanding. It is just mind. The universe's mind is consciousness. And your mind, your consciousness, is the filter. But it's all the same stuff. Consciousness filtering consciousness. This is why working on yourself is of universal and world importance. Momentum. Momentousness. It is aligning to the consciousness you are, to who you are in your most beautiful, optimal expression of the consciousness you are. So the universe's mind is consciousness, and this is what you are. So you are not, when you realise this, you are not just a little fragmented piece floating about in like this vast, unfathomable universe. You are that universe. You are that universe. So this is a way of seeing. My way of seeing that I represented or talked about in the video before, or the one before that. You may imagine things differently, or use different signs and symbols to understand the same truth, you know? Just like I talked about going out and coming back in, it's kind of like a linear journey. but ultimately there's no lineation. It's because the linear journey needs time and space. So you might want to represent it like the alchemical symbol of the sun, the center point coming out into manifestation and then back into center point, which is also what's happening. It's the same thing, just a different representation. And the problem, if there is a problem in the world, is that we get lost in the representation. So all the different religious, spiritual expressions, instead of seeing that they're ultimately the same, pointing to the same heart, the same life sun that we are, we get bogged down in comparing the representations. It's like we intellectualize because we lack that spiritual capacity, because we haven't looked at ourselves, we haven't looked beyond thought, we haven't looked beyond constructs. And if we haven't looked beyond constructs and don't have an understanding beyond constructs, then even the most elevated truth to you is going to sound like a construct. So this is why it is imperative that you look to yourself, to see yourself beyond the constructs that you've created around yourself and called yourself. Yeah. So we are this one essence choosing. We are this one essence choosing. And choosing for oneness may be choosing moving away from one, or choosing returning to one. So oneness experiences itself through a journey, and a journey requires all stages. Yeah, you need the outgoing part before you have the incoming part. You can't just have an incoming journey without an outgoing journey. So whatever choice we're making, whether we're choosing to veer away from oneness, or we're choosing to return to oneness, it's all oneness choosing. It's all oneness choosing. It's all the journey happening, the journey of oneness that we are. So choosing for oneness may be choosing moving away from one, or choosing returning to one. It's all one. All choices are in service to oneness, although some appear more aligned to it than others. But in the world we need both sides of the spectrum. Again, the duality, the time and space duality that exists through opposites, you know? In the world we need both sides of a spectrum. All is as it needs to be in the world. So all is as it needs to be in the world. Like, we might want to create a perfect world, and maybe we will. But all is as it needs to be in the world. But in yourself, we can make changes, you know. In yourself, you can change things. And as you change, the world changes. As you change, your perception of the world changes. And as you change, the reality of the world changes. In a sense, what is beyond perception? We are consciousness perceiving itself. So if we can elevate our consciousness, then what we perceive, and I guess that's what's happening here, like, my consciousness is at a place where it can be at peace with the plus and the minus, the up and the down, the almost like the depth of the negative as well as the height of the positive. And in one sense it would be very different if I, as an individual, were locked into the depth of the negative. But then again, being truly spiritually elevated is seeing that you are not just that individual expression. You are all consciousness. Regardless of pleasure and pain, you are all consciousness having an experience. And no one wants to have an experience of pain, do they? And yet even when we have the choice to experience beauty, we choose not to. So maybe we do. Maybe consciousness wants to experience pain. It's the plus and the minus. The world held across a spectrum. Everything from positive to negative, everything from hate to love, and yet it's all held in love. Love allows it all to be. So ultimate love is different to the expression of love, only in so much as it's an expression, and an expression can only mirror, at best, the ultimate. So isn't this what we want, to mirror the love that we are, to return the image, like God made man in his own image, to return the image of man to its ultimate essence. So it's all one. All choices are in service to oneness, although some appear more aligned to it than others. But in the world we need both sides of the spectrum. All is as it needs to be in the world. But in yourself, you have choices. What do you want to be? Where are you? Who are you? What's your essence? This is the crux. Because this is the point through which consciousness sees. I remember reading something somewhere, I think it was a Christian leaflet, which said, Christ has no eyes to see but yours, Christ has no hands to do but your hands, and Christ has no heart to love but your heart. And I found that very beautiful. So we are here to re-find what we lost, to find ourselves, firstly through the fragments, the time and space matrix, and then in terms of the whole that we remember we came from, that we remember those fragments came from. So remembering that fragments return to one. If we are fragmented in our consciousness, it's remembering that we also return to one. And returning to one, like we talked about before, is returning to presence. It's feeling, being with your consciousness, whatever's going on in your awareness, in your consciousness. Because it is your consciousness, it is your awareness. Closer to this presence is overcoming the push and pull, what I talked about, the plus and minus of the spectrum. Overcoming the push and pull. Like the push and pull, it's like never gets anywhere, it's just one side and the other. I mean, you look at the escalators, the underground, you've got just as many people coming down them as going up them. It's like, it's all cancelling out on a broader level. So closer to presence is overcoming the push and pull, overcoming the up and down, overcoming the left and right. It's overcoming duality, mastering the game. It's seeing that we don't need to be lost in one side of the duality. It's seeing that we can't be like that. We can't be who we are like that. We can't invest ourselves in a limitation and be who we are. So mastering the game is embracing the duality as one. It's kind of like seeing that it's all necessary and all just happening. Love playing itself out. So mastering the game, I said, and I thought this morning, this idea of a mast. It's like the mast is the centre of the boat, and the mast is the strong support which hold the sails, which give the boat direction. So it's kind of like this mast is self-mastery is having this strong sense of centre, of like a centre anchor, almost like a centre support, not an anchor, centre support through which we can move. Self-mastery is, it's determining our own direction from that centre. And that centre, coming to that centre, means presence. So this is something that presence you can practice so deeply. When at first you may hear sounds, and you may want to when you're practicing presence in meditation, you may want to just be around lovely sounds, like a meditation CD of lovely sounds, of nature sounds, that are still nature itself. But the fact is that you'll probably be disturbed by building work, by traffic, by someone shouting. And so you learn that actually presence is not just having to be with the good stuff. Presence is being aware of all of it, as it happens around you. It's like your ears are just instruments without the mental interpretation of, oh, I like that sound, I don't like that sound. So we kind of lose our centre through mental interpretations of things, which take us into one side or other of the duality, because the mind is, in a thinking sense, locked in duality. It's locked in separation. Thought is of separation, and our essence is deeper than separation. All this is in the book In We Are Awakening, in the first one and the second one, the little one and the big one. So, and practicing presence, like you hear something, or you get it just on a day-to-day level, you're not even meditating, you hear sounds around you, like maybe from people living around you, and it's annoying. You hear these sounds, and so actually you've got a choice. Do you get drawn out of yourself into these sounds and into an emotion, or do you stay in your centre and say, okay, well, no, I'm not going to let this sound pull me out of myself. I'm going to stay centred and just be aware of what I'm feeling here. Like, do you let anger carry you away, or can you master it? Can you witness it within yourself? Because this is all that is happening. Consciousness is witnessing the arising and the falling away. Consciousness is witnessing itself. So, presence, you hear a sound, you know all you are is consciousness. Are you drawn out of yourself, or can you stay with yourself? Can you stay within and not be pulled out? It's all you, but you, in terms of your experience in the world, are custodian of your essence. So this is why we cultivate presence, because we are the custodian of the consciousness that runs through us. And do we want our consciousness to sort of run away and lose our power, lose our energy, or do we want to, hold our love, hold our centre? It's all you, but you, in terms of your experience in the world, are custodian of your own essence. And it's all an experience and test of your resoluteness in this. It's not easy to be present, to be real. It takes ongoing work. It's not a false presence either. It's not pretending to be unaffected. It has to be real. So it takes ongoing work to cultivate presence, to cultivate awareness, to cultivate consciousness. It takes ongoing work to be here, and yet being here is effortless unfolding, it's effortless watching. It's like you cultivate the witness within yourself, which is the ultimate essence, seeing itself playing out in time and space, in your own thought processes, in your own actions. It's like I suppose in a negative sense, if we're locked in time and space, we can get overly conscious of ourselves to the point where we may almost freeze in fear. We're too self-conscious. But But in spiritual terms, there's a very similar mechanism with very different results, which is witnessing yourself just the same, but with a consciousness not of I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not, consciousness locked in time and space values. You're witnessing from that essence. It's that essence witnessing yourself, not the critiquing limited mind witnessing yourself, which cripples you, but ultimate essence witnessing yourself, pure essence witnessing yourself. When I say yourself here, I mean like the limited version. So your essence witnessing you in expression. Consciousness witnessing itself. This is all that's happening. So I mentioned before, we inform ourselves of what we are through this witnessing. It's like, this is the journey. Burning ball of light is the sun. So burning ball of light is the sun. This, when I talked about the essence of self, of God, of love, of truth, of timelessness, of eternity, pure being, pure energy, pure potential, everything and nothing beyond time and space, oneness. All of these things to me are life, pure life essence, represented by the sun. So this is mystical and real. I've written this is mystical and real, because in the one sense, we're not the sun. This is kind of like a mystical understanding of our essence. I mean, in physical terms, the sun is out there and I am here. In spiritual terms, that sun is the light of my own heart. And just as it's the centre of the solar system, it's the centre of my being, like the heart is the centre of your being. Set the heart. I'm not talking about the physical heart, I'm talking about the spiritual heart. So to me it's like we have a physical reminder of our spiritual essence in the sky, and if you want to relate it to a very practical level, the sun is the giver of all life. No life would exist without the sun, without the warmth of the sun, without the rays of the sun. Plants, humans, the earth would be inhospitable without the sun. It wouldn't be here without the sun. All the planets turn around the sun, just as our consciousness turns around our essence. Our experience turns around our heart, just as the planets turn around the sun. So spirit gives all, the sun gives all physical life, and Rumi talks of, the poet Rumi, Persian poet, talks of the sun, within the sun, and how he claims to be talking about God when he says that. It's like the sun has a spiritual essence. It's not just a physical thing. It has a spiritual essence, which is our spiritual essence. And just as the sun journeys, or appears to journey from our perspective, we are that sunlight, crystallized in form, journeying to and from ourselves. And all the religions, the Son of God, I mean, you could interpret that in another way, couldn't you? The Son of God, the burning ball of light that God is, doesn't have to be a person. So physically you're not the Son, but spiritually you might be. This light is the symbol of your light, is the symbol of consciousness you are, reminding you it is all the same light, the light of God, true self, nature, one. So it's like in the physical manifestation of this burning ball of light, we have a reminder of that essence. I mean, in astrological terms as well, it's the journey of the sun through the heavens. I think I'll finish there.